Hey, I'm Rob Gantt with the Goose Creek Gazette and the Berkeley Independent. I'm sitting here today with the hardest working man in show business, Roger Lee of the Summerville Journal scene. We're at Coastal Coffee Roasters in Summerville talking a little football. We're into week 4. Roger, tell us a little bit about what's going on in Dorchester County right
now. We had some bye weeks, some teams that had bye weeks last week, but everybody's back in action this week, so it should be exciting. Summerville is going to host Goose Creek. That's always a good game. You can pretty much throw out who the favorite is in this game because the Gators are going to bring it. The Green Wave is going to bring it. They don't have any love lost between these two teams. Now the Gators are 0-3, so they are having a little bit of a down year, but I still think it's going to be a pretty good game. Goose Creek's averaging 10 points a game, while Summerville is averaging 26 points a game. Both teams have had some troubles with turnovers, so that's probably the thing to watch in this game is who holds on to the ball and who doesn't hurt themselves probably. Jonathan Bennett, Summerville quarterback, he's rushed for nearly 300 yards he's passed for nearly 300 yards, rushed for nearly 150. Shaq Davis is their leading receiver. I think that's probably because people figured out they have to cover Cameron Burnett and Olin McCurry, their other receiver. People knew about him last year. He's not the go-to guy, but they know, they have to keep an eye on Olin. So, but that's a dangerous receiving core he's got, and Summerville seems to be doing well, coming off a loss to Dutch Fork. The way I see it, I think Summerville kind of served notice to the state that they're a team that can't be messed with. They had the lead and lost it, but Dutch Fork has a solid team. Oh man, they just got so many skill guys and they can move the ball so well. But I think I'm not really looking at that as a bad thing that they lost to Dutch Fork by 2 points. I think that's pretty impressive that they hung with them and that they could have won that game.
Well, they kind of stamped themselves a contender a little bit. When you hang with the number one team in the state, it means you're legit. And maybe if you meet later in the season, you get it done against them the second time.
Maybe. Fort Dorchester has Wando, 2 good football programs here in the Low Country. They're always going to have a good contest when they show up to the field. Fort Dorchester suffered a loss to Dutch Fork a couple of weeks ago. And I know they're anxious to get back out there and prove that they can play with a team like Wando. Fort quarterback Carry-On Joyner has passed for just under 1,000 yards this season, rushed for just under 200. He's Justin Williams and Raekwon Simmons continue to be his top targets, 2 quality receivers. They've got some other weapons on that team. I think the Fort defense has probably been working pretty hard over the last 3 or 4 weeks. I think you're going to start seeing them kind of piece some things together and maybe start kind of surprising some teams. But they're looking forward to seeing how Fort does over at Wando. Ashley Ridge is hosting West Ashley. West Ashley is a 1-2 record now, but they've played some pretty good teams this year. West Ashley lost 31-27 to Charlotte Christian Independent School out of North Carolina last week, so that was a game they could have won. Dexter Freeman is one of the better running backs in the state, so you can't sleep on him. He's a threat to break it at any time. You can't let him slip out of that backfield. Ashley Ridge is coming off a win. Well, they had a bye week last week, but the week before that they had a win over Colleton County. So Ashley Ridge is now 1-2, looking to get that second win, pull to 500. Their offense is starting to kind of churn out some yards and stuff like that. With them, they have 4 guys who are among the Low Country leaders in tackles this season. Jay Mitchum, Alex DeLoach, C.J. Brown, and Ben Mitchum are kind of anchoring that Swamp Fox defensive unit. And, I'm thinking that might be the difference in this game with West Ashley. West Ashley under Bobby Marion, they always have a tricky offense. Lots of play calls, never know what to expect, and they always move the ball. So I think that game is going to be about, how can the Ashley Ridge defense stand up to West Ashley. The only other game we have on my side of the things is Pinewood is going up to Charlotte Country Day. Again, that's another private school. They're 4-0. Pinewood is 4-0. Charlotte Country Day has a good program, though. It'll be interesting to see how. I think it's probably going to be one of their bigger tests of the year so far, and it'll get them prepared for some of these upper state SCISA teams that are coming up in the next week or two that are going to give Pinewood a test. They've had, their quarterback that was going to start this year was injured early in the year. He's going to miss the season, but Sammy Casey has stepped up, done the job there. Tatum Rowland and Jalen Slauson have proven to be his two top targets, two quality receivers. And Matthew Latham at running back is just, he's just having a great year. People are really having trouble stopping Latham, and he plays on the defensive side of the ball. He has a couple of interceptions, I think. So that's going to be a good matchup for Pinewood. And I do want to mention on the defensive side for Pinewood, Ben Turner and Connor McSwain are both among the low country leaders in tackles this year too. So they look like they're looking to have a pretty strong outing up in North Carolina. What you got, Rob?
Well, I've got a lot going on Berkeley County. I think the one thing that sticks out to me on my side of the fence, my side of things, is that I've got some teams that are really struggling. As you mentioned before, Goose Creek is 0-3. We're not accustomed to seeing that. Stratford is also 0-3. We're not accustomed to seeing that. Hanahan has lost 3 in a row now since winning in week 0, so they're 1-3. I guess my message to those teams, or the things that's going on there, is they're just not putting it all together. You got to be able to, when you play football, it's a 4-quarter thing. It's executing. It's making all the plays. It's picking up all the assignments. It's 11 men doing their jobs. And for those 3 teams in particular, I think it's just a classic case of maybe 9 or 10 men doing things right, one guy not. And once they kind of put everything together, I think we can look for them teams to move forward. This week, Goose Creek, as you mentioned, goes to Summerville. Stratford hosts James Island in a game that I feel like the Knights will really get back on track. James Island has given up a lot of points this year, and I know Stratford is not exactly a juggernaut so far, but I think they're getting better, and I think they'll, respond against James Island. Hanahan goes to St. John's. That's on Johns Island. St. John's is a great Class A football team, but Hanahan is 2 classifications bigger. They should be able to go to St. John's and kind of get on track there. I would especially look for Jerry Bailey, Hawks running back, who's having a sensational season. He had 161 yards against Berkeley. Anyway, I would look for him to have a very productive game against St. John's. That leads me to my game of the week, what I believe is the game of the week. It's Timberland Wolves and the Cane Bay Cobras. You know about Timberland, their tradition. They are pretty much a contender in whatever classification they're in. They're a legit contender for a state championship. Well, the media darlings of the season in the Low Country are the Cane Bay Cobras. Not a whole lot was expected of them by some people, although I projected them to do very well. They are 3-0 right now. Timberland loads up the buses. They're going to ride over to Summerville. They're going to take on the Cane Bay Cobras in what figures to be, every bit as exciting as a heavyweight boxing match. I mean, both of them are physical. Both of them like to run the football. The game should go very quickly. I want to mention a couple of players. One little note for Timberland is welcome back Kevin Williams, a running back. He was injured in a car wreck before the season. He'll be suiting up for the first time on Friday night for Timberland. He is a bona fide weapon. I'm not sure where he is in his progression, but if he's healthy, he gives them a weapon that they haven't had the first 3 weeks of the season. Cane Bay is a 3-headed just monster. R.J. Roderick is an option quarterback that could very easily be a Division I safety or a linebacker type. He will knock your head off, and he is very physical. Chris Copeland is kind of like a bullet out of the backfield. He can make plays. I look for him to have a big game. If Cane Bay wins, Chris Copeland will have had a big game, in my opinion. Don't want to forget the fullback there, Damon DeFord. He is a wrecking ball, and the offensive line has done a great job opening holes for Cane Bay's weapons. And on defense, I look for Rolando Burris and Malcolm Burnett. They're 2 corners that kind of help hold everything together for Cane Bay. I do want to mention for Northwood, Nolan Litchfield, quarterback, had his best game of the year, 259 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. He led the Chargers to their first victory. the team that they beat was Dorchester Academy, 47-35. Dorchester Academy's kind of over there in your area, so one of my teams whipped your boys. We're usually used to that. I'm usually used to that, but this year we had some struggles.